Welcome, artists, to Monet Cafe Studio. I've had so many requests for this lesson because many of you have noticed the AI-generated reference images I've been using in my painting tutorials. In today's lesson, I will not only take you behind the scenes to show you the nuts and bolts and how-tos for this process, I'll also dive into the question of, should artists even be using AI images? No matter what medium you work in, this is a conversation every artist can learn from as we step into this creative frontier. I wanted to begin by showing you some of the AI reference images I have created using different AI resources, which I'll be talking about later. I think you can see that some of them lean more realistic and some of them lean a bit more painterly. Now, I prefer to create my AI images that don't already look like a painting. For example, you'll see this poppy field really looks like a field of poppies, as well as this field of beautiful sunflowers, versus something like this, where it is already sort of created in a painting mode, and you have some control over those choices in Adobe Firefly, which I'll be showing you in the how-to section. I do sometimes use some of the more painterly versions of AI-created images for inspiration, but I really love the realistic-looking ones like this, so I can add my own artistic spin and interpretation. Let me show you a few images that I've actually used for some painting creations where I have tutorials right here on my YouTube channel. I loved this theme of blue flowers in this field full of green. And for this painting, I used kind of a combination of multiple images along the same theme and color palette to interpret it. That's the word that I love to use when I am painting, whether it's from a reference image that's from real life or one that I may have generated using artificial intelligence. It's never my goal to copy a reference, but rather to let it inspire me. That's what I encourage if you choose to use AI images yourself. I'll show you a few more. These were all images that I created using AI references. This is a lesson that's on my Patreon page. It's called Artistic Meditations, where we just relax and paint. And all four of these were studies that were done using AI references as inspiration. And if you're a patron of mine on my Patreon page, you may already know that you have access to my AI reference image library. It's a Google album with so many AI images I've created. Now, here's an example of one that was a little bit more of a painterly reference image, but I really liked it, and it was fun for a study. And here are all four of those studies. And here is another example of an AI image that I created with Adobe Firefly that I used as a reference image for a painting. Now, another way that I am using AI reference images that is so beneficial is for conceptual images. Let me give you an example. Many years ago, gosh, this was probably 10, 12 years ago, I had a project I worked on. It was one of the most beautiful projects I've ever done. A children's home contacted me to paint or donate some paintings to their children's home. These are large acrylic paintings. They wanted something to greet these children that would put a smile on their face in spite of their heartbreaking and tragic circumstances. So I decided to create these paintings with hidden images in them. They have a Christian theme and a lot of things the children had to find in the images, but wow, I thought I had bitten off more than I could chew with that idea because I had no reference images to work from and literally had to hunt for so many different reference images to come up with my concept. Here's another image where a client gave me a photo of a piece of her land she wanted to remember she was moving, and she wanted me to put her horses in the painting. So I had to rush out to her property, take photos of the horses, try to arrange all of those elements in Photoshop just to come up with a reference image. Another conceptual project where AI would have come in so handy was my own book I wrote years ago called The Mountain Queen. Once again, I had images I needed to create that weren't from anything in real life. So it was an arduous task, and AI would have definitely helped me out a lot. Now, just as an example of what AI can actually do, I decided to take some of the pages from my book and create some illustrations. What I love about this is it feels like I'm painting with my mind. And I have loved being able to describe what I see and the images I'm trying to create in a way that can be interpreted to something that tells a story so beautifully. Now, these don't come about easily. I will let you know some of these images took quite a long time and a lot of trial and error to create. but I wanted to give you an idea of what AI can do, and I do plan on releasing a revised version of my book using these images. Now, I promise you we are getting to the how-to section of this tutorial, but I first wanted to cover something that I feel is very important. Should we or shouldn't we use AI to create reference images to paint from? First, let me share what I believe is the best way for an artist to create and paint. Get outside, take your own images. There's nothing like the realness of this world, and nothing can take the place of what our Creator has made from nothing without any help of technology. If you are aspiring and striving for professionalism, or you're going to be showing your work in a gallery or entering it into any art contest, I highly stress for you to take your own reference images, or as I mentioned, what I think is the truest form of art is to get out, immerse yourself in this beautiful creation, and paint from life. Now, with that said, I know there are others out there, other artists who, like me, have not really had a life that has allowed for a lot of artistic excursions, whether you're handicapped, caring for someone, or you just have a beautifully busy life. Not everyone has to or wants to become a fine artist. Many of us have different artistic goals and desires. So let me talk to you about some general good practices when using AI to make your own reference images. I encourage you to use AI as inspiration, not copying. Treat it like a photo reference, not a finished painting. Also, choose photo-like outputs, like I mentioned before, to avoid AI-generated paintings that you might just duplicate. I'll show you more about that in the how-to section. And adapt creatively. Crop the image, flip the image, change the perspective, or modify colors to make the reference image uniquely yours. Fortunately, today there are so many options for creating AI images, but the two that I have used primarily are first, ChatGPT. I've been using ChatGPT for a while now, and I love it for very many reasons. And Adobe Firefly. Now, I've been using Adobe products for so many years. Adobe's the company that has Photoshop and many other graphic programs, but Adobe Firefly is more specified for AI image generation. And both of these have a free version, so it's great to know you can actually play around with these for free. Let me break this down for you. With the free plans, the ChatGPT free plan has basic image generation, but the resolution of your images is going to be lower, which is not a big deal if you're just using them for reference images. And with the Adobe Firefly free version, you have limited monthly credits. There's only so much you can do unless you buy a plan, and slower speeds and lower export options. And I'm not going to read all of the paid plan options, but you can pause your video to look at them. But I wanted to stress one of the things I like about the paid plans is better consistency. If you're doing a project like my book where you need images to remain consistent throughout. All right, let's dive into this. Here I am in Adobe Firefly, and I want to first show you how to create an image from scratch. First, you're going to choose image in that little title bar there. And yes, you see to the right of that, they do allow you to create video with the paid plan. And you basically just type in your general idea of what you're trying to create. You can tweak it after the fact. So it comes up with some images. Now, they're never what I want, but before I start showing you how I change the image based on my prompt, you see that section below, I want to show you these general settings up here. It's on the upper left. And the first section or category, you see a drop-down menu. It's called Model, and I would recommend at first that you just stay in the basic Firefly image. They've got different versions of it. I see now they have a Firefly image for Ultra that should give more quality and detail, and that might be for the paid version of this. But I like to think of these as engines. They will cause your images to create a little bit differently. You'll have to play around with those, and I find the basic Firefly one is the best. Now, they also do have the general ChatGPT, the other way I told you I make my images, in these engines. So for now, I would say just choose the basic Firefly option. The next choice you have is the aspect ratio, and you literally just choose which type of proportion you're looking for. I have mine set to landscape now, but you can change it to whatever you want. The next one is what I had mentioned before, where you can choose the result, the output, whether you want it to be photo, that will produce images more like a photograph, or art. You also have the option to change that to auto. I never use that. I usually just keep it on photo, but play around with it again. Visual intensity. This bar is a slider bar that gives you the ability to choose how intense you want these images to be based on your description. You can see this little example here. Like look at the one that's a portrait. It says close-up portrait. The first one is very basic, and you see it just goes in stages until the last one is more dramatic. So I usually keep my slider bar pretty dramatic because I'm using these as artistic reference images and I want them to be pretty dramatic. So composition is one that you can add your own image. You can browse their gallery too. I never use that option. They have a lot of photos. But what you can do is upload your own photo to give it a reference. This one is a reference based on style. If you have a photo where you like the style of the photo, I'll show you how to do this too. You can click and add a photo for it to know this is the style I'm looking for. Now down here on the effects, it has all kinds of different effects that you can add. Again, play around with these. I don't use these very much unless I am doing something like creating something that looks more like a drawing, but it's a lot of fun. Now we've got options here with color and tone. If you want a golden color or monochromatic, black and white. I usually don't do a whole lot with this one. My preference is to choose something with the lighting. I like the one that's golden hour. I love backlit photos, so you can choose backlighting, dramatic lighting, again, golden hour, and so many other choices. Again, the best way to learn these things is to play with these. Now, the next one is the camera angle. Now, I do use this a lot when I'm doing illustrations. That would be for a storybook. But this shallow depth of field one is the one that it looks like a photo where you have a blurry background. And that's often really great for a painting reference. So, a lot of options. Again, just play and have fun with this. And you will learn a lot through that process. Now I'm going to click one of these. I do like this hummingbird image here. And I'm going to show you some of the little options. I blew it up. You can get to these same commands when it's a little thumbnail, but you can see them better here. You can download it. The download button is right there on the upper right, and you save it to your computer. You can also open this up in Photoshop Web. Now I'm not sure if you'll have access to that. I have Photoshop as a program myself, so see if you can access that in the free version. Now this edit button gives you all kinds of different options. I'm going to be showing you one of these or a couple of these. And you can even add text. Again, not sure if that's available in the free version, but my patrons are going to get extra content at the end of this video. I'm going to show you how to add text to these images and so much more. By the way, you can also click that little star at the bottom right of the image. It will save it to favorites. Now, I want to show you a few other helpful tools. If you go, I'm in the smaller version now, to the little pencil edit command, you can choose something that says generate similar. If you kind of like how this is headed, you can click it and it will generate a whole new, they always do these in sets of 4, and that's what I'm doing right now. And you'll see it will generate 4 more images similar to that one hummingbird image that I really liked. Now, be patient with this. Sometimes it's like this AI has a mind of its own and it might not follow your commands. So often I have to work at this. Now I'd like to show you a few more features in this little edit drop-down list. Remember I mentioned you can use an image as a composition reference or a style reference. So if you find an image you like this hummingbird, and I say I want AI to keep this one in mind, click the composition reference as to do with the composition. I like where the bird is, and it will kind of hold that down there like a little placeholder and remember it. And I thought I'd go ahead and add, this is where you add to the prompt. Remember, it was just hummingbird in a field of flowers. Now I want to add a fence post with morning glories and give it some type of lighting, some morning light. And it has that little composition reference of that one image I like as a command of sorts to let it know to generate a similar composition. All right, I'm going to click generate here. I've added to my prompt to add a fence post with morning glories, make lighting that's like gentle morning sunlight, and let's see what it creates. And it's also kind of exciting to know what is it going to create. It definitely looks more like morning light. I like this little one here. The bird looks a little too superimposed to me, so I keep working and tweaking until I finally get what I like. But now I would like to show you some of these other commands over here that have to do with lighting. If I wanted to choose, let's say backlighting for this image, for the camera angle, I'm going to choose the shallow depth of field so that I have my hummingbird in focus. It already kind of has it that way right now, but it will keep that blurry background. So let's generate 4 more and see what it comes up with. And voila, now we have a beautiful scene that is backlit. And I really love this one here. And I could actually go in here now and use this as a style reference. I like the style, I like the backlighting, and see how it saved the style reference down there. But I'm going to try taking away the composition reference. So now it will not be anchored into having the composition the same the next time I click generate. And I'm going to give it another prompt. I want it to give the image a soft artistic flair. So I find too that it's best to add on to your original prompt. Don't erase the whole prompt or you're literally starting over from scratch. So just add on as you work. All right, so now we're getting somewhere. These are beautiful. Look at that. I've got my morning light that I wanted. I've got a backlit subject, and I just really am loving the look of this. There's another feature that I really love, and I use it all the time. It's called Generative Fill. Now, I use this over in Photoshop all the time, but it's nice that it has this feature right here within each photo. And my Patreon version of this lesson will also have a section at the end that shares how I use Generative Fill and even how I can turn this into a video. And that seems like a good segue to let you know how to join my Patreon family. My Patreon page has all of the extra content and goodies I'm always talking about. Plus, my favorite part is I get to see your work. We have contest prizes and so much more. Come on and join the family. It's only $5 a month. And while I've got you here, could I ask a tiny favor? Would you go ahead and click that thumbs up like button, leave me a comment, and of course, subscribe and share this video if you know of anyone who may be interested in this exciting content. Now, so far, we've been creating images in Firefly from scratch. But now, one of my favorite things to do is to use my own reference images, my own photography, to begin and use that photo as a reference for style and composition. And by the way, once again, if you're a patron of mine, you have access to this album to be able to use my personal reference images. I loved snapping all these photos of these gorgeous zinnias one random day while driving down the road. So now instead of starting from scratch, I'll be using my own reference image as a starting point. And now let me show you how to do this in Firefly. And if you've already generated some images in Firefly, there's a little clear button down underneath the prompt, or you can just highlight everything and delete it. And now what I'm going to do is go back up to the top where I am able to add an image. The first one I'll do is composition. I'm going to click that little icon right there. I'm going to find it on my device. It was in my download folder. And now I'm going to do the same thing for the style. And I found my image. And you see how in the bottom underneath the prompt, it added both the style reference and the composition reference that is my photo that I inserted there. Now, I'm just going to make a quick prompt and see what it comes up with. I ask it to make an image with a strong focal point, make the foreground flowers in a beautiful artistic style with gentle morning light. So it's using my reference image as a starting point to begin this process. But whoa, what's this? Where did these sunflowers come from? Well, if you look over here to the style slider bar to the left, I can move that slider bar to where it has a higher intensity, and then it will preserve my details more as the final image rather than coming up with something on its own. And I also went in and wrote in the prompt to keep the flowers as zinnia flowers as in my reference. And this time it seems like it used my reference too much and was trying to stay within the parameters of my image. So I'm going to find a balance between the two to create an image that inspires me to paint. So I'm taking my style slider bar back down to the middle area. I'm going to add another prompt. I'm going to take away that last sentence there about keeping the flowers as zinnias. And I'm going to instead ask it to place the zinnia flowers in a meadow with a gentle blowing breeze. And I'm going to jump ahead here for a few other alterations that I made to this image. You can see this kind of happening before your eyes until I was able to get some images I really liked. I love this one. It almost looked like there was little bits of rain falling on the flowers. And now I would like to show you what will happen if I choose the art mode underneath the content type rather than the photo mode. Notice I just took the visual intensity down. I don't want it to look too much like a painting. So I generated more images, and oh, look at these. You see how it does look a little bit more like art, but it's still quite a beautiful reference image that I don't feel like I would be painting from a painting. This one too, oh my goodness, I love this. The colors are gorgeous. So I'll save it to my favorites or download it to my computer. I could keep going with this. I could use it as a style reference again. I could generate something similar. I could change it to a portrait format versus a horizontal format. I'm going to bump up the visual intensity now and see what happens with this next generation of images. It always does 4 images. I'm not sure why, just to give you some choices, I guess. But I have so much fun with this. You've got to be careful with it because you will get, if you're like me, you get so engrossed in this, you just want to keep creating images, which is fun. But look at this one. Isn't this beautiful? Now, this is an example of one where I would do a generative fill. It kind of cut one of the flowers off on one of the sides, and I could do a generative fill to give more area to that image. So I'm definitely saving these as favorites. But I need to get moving on to talk to you guys about ChatGPT, which is another way you can create your own reference images for paintings. And I will let you know that I use ChatGPT for so many other things. It helps me so much with my art business, and it's gotten to where it knows me. It even writes like I do. It knows I'm a Christian and even sometimes suggests to add Bible verses to some of my writings. And I look at it as an assistant, and I could go on a long time about some of the dangers I see coming prophetically, but we'll leave that for another video. For now, I'm just using it as a tool. So here I am in ChatGPT. This is what I see because I'm already logged in. You can create your own free account. I'd like to let you know that the account I have, it's a $20 a month account. And oh boy, do I find that money well spent for all of the ways that I use it. But we're going to focus on image creation in this lesson. So I want you to take a look over here at the left side here. You've got where you can have a new chat, search your chats, library. Again, we're not going into all of that. But over here on the left side, there is, think of this again, like I said with Firefly, this is like an engine, like a way that it works. This one called DALL-E. It's for image creation. But I want to let you know that you can also create images right here within the main screen of ChatGPT. Now, it creates images for me quite well because ChatGPT learns you, and it has learned the styles that I like. It even knows my painting style. So the longer you use it, the more its memory saves things about you that are very helpful. So another option you can use over here is something called Image Generator. But I'm first just going to show you a little bit about how to use DALL-E. So I'm just going to click DALL-E, and it goes to that section of ChatGPT. And in the prompt bar at the bottom, you can't see it right here, but I am going to type in a verbal prompt similar to what I did in Firefly. And I'm just going to type in to create a portrait format reference image in the style of a beautiful meadow with morning glories. And you can see the prompt here. Now, sometimes this image creation can take a while, especially if you have the free version. And it even seems sometimes like it takes a while for me, especially if I have a lot of programs open up on my computer or my Wi-Fi is slow. All right, that made it a little bit too much like a hyper-realistic image for me. That already looks like an illustration, and that is not something I would paint from. Now, it might be something nice for a book, but yeah, it's not really what I'm going for. And this is where I can tell you what I like about Firefly is that I have more control over the output of the images than I do in ChatGPT. ChatGPT is more of a verbal prompt that you have to keep tweaking it. But if you use it all the time like I do, it can eventually get to where it knows you and create images faster. So I'm going to give it now another prompt to make it even more like a photo and to brighten it up a bit. So I give another prompt to change it to be more like a photograph and bright early morning light. And again, these are beautiful, but they look a bit more illustrative. And I just realized why, because I am in DALL-E, and DALL-E, that engine, like I mentioned, is a bit more illustrative. I could keep tweaking this and get it to be even more like a photograph, but I'm going to show you the difference between DALL-E and me going right into ChatGPT. I'm going to just copy and paste my original prompt here. So I'm just copying this, and I'm going to go to the regular GPT chat section. That's the one at the top where you just say new chat, and I pasted in my original prompt. And like I said, it knows me, so sometimes it will create images that are a bit more in the style of a soft pastel painting, which is not what I want for a reference image. So I will have to tell it again to change it more to be a photograph. So let's do that. And as you can see, it did do some tweaks, and I do like this image, but that mountain, that is not a great shape for the mountain. So I could use my artistic license to change this image in ways that I would think it would make it more compositionally pleasing. So that method was just like we started with Firefly. We were just using verbal prompts without any reference image attached. But you can also do that within ChatGPT. So this time I'm going to insert a reference image, and I'm going to ask it to use this image as inspiration to create for me a painting reference in the style that you know I like. I would like it to be in a square format. And you can see it creates a lovely reference image, and I could tweak this further with more verbal prompts, but now I just want to show you what it would do for another image. So I'm going to upload another photo reference, and by the way, all I'm doing is clicking that plus button and clicking add photos and files, and I pull it once again from my computer. So these, by the way, are some reference images that I have used from unsplash.com. It's a copyright-free resource for reference images. So you could just use those reference images, or you could do like I'm doing here. You could tweak them further with some verbal prompts to create images that you would like to paint from. And again, the sky is the limit. As long as you want to keep giving it instructions and playing around with the images, there is really no limit to what you can create. Now, I want to change this to a portrait format. So without you guys having to wait, here is what it generated. I continued to add verbal prompts to this to tweak the image further, and I won't take you through the whole process, but this is one of the final images that I created, and I really did love it. And I wanted to share with you guys a question I asked myself as I was learning. I'm self-taught with this. I know there's probably a lot of people who are better at it than I am, but my question to myself was, do I think the old masters, Monet, Van Gogh, would have embraced some aspects of AI technology, or would they have said, no, this is an absolute no-no in the world of fine art? Well, I recently had a podcast talking about the Impressionistic movement, and these guys were rebels. They were not even considered elite enough to be in the fine art club, so to speak, because they were rebels. They didn't want to stay confined into a fine art box where you never reach out and explore new things. And I've sort of thought of myself in this category. I am totally self-taught. I don't stay always within the lines, and I may have some art police really getting me after this post. But this is where I would like to get your comments and thoughts. Do you think the old masters like Monet or Van Gogh would have embraced AI as a creative tool? Do you see AI-generated references as inspiration for art or crossing a line? And how do you personally feel about using AI to spark new ideas for your paintings? Is it exciting, taboo, or somewhere in between? So I'm looking forward to that conversation, and I would also love it if you would let me know if you would like more videos like this from my channel. Now, if you're a patron of mine, stay tuned. You have extra content. I show you not only how to create more reference images using generative fill, but even how to turn them into video. Isn't that exciting? And I also take my patrons through the creation of this image where I show you how to add text and just a sweet little painting based on verbal prompts and more. I know I talk a lot about my Patreon page, but I wanted to personally thank so many of you who have given me a super thanks, given me a tip for a video, and I wanted to let those of you know if you wanted to do that, the best way to do it is to click the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description of this video to leave a little tip. I'm so incredibly grateful. All right, everyone, that was a lot in one video, and it was a little bit of a departure from my typical tutorials of painting. I pray it blessed you. I'm looking forward to this conversation, and as always, artists and friends, God bless and happy painting.